welcome back. Hopefully you listen to the instructions and you're not just watching this right after the other one. Hopefully it is tomorrow, but I can't stop you if it is the same day. So today we are going to be talking about Reader's Theater and Poetry Slams. Reader's Theater, you're probably familiar with from younger grades. It's more often used with younger people these days, but it did have a heyday in which it was a very popular way to perform. I mean, it's a really easy, straightforward way to do a performance, right? You've got two actors or more sitting in, a chair with a script in front of them, and they just read it. It's kind of like the initial reads that we do for plays where we read all the way through. It can be like a radio play. There are some really cool podcasts that are sort of like radio plays. Homecoming is an example of a really cool one. You could actually go back farther and listen to like War of the Worlds, which was one of the original radio plays that apparently, this feels apocryphal, but apparently when War of the Worlds was playing, because there was no internet and it was like the 30s, people were like, oh no, aliens are actually invading. Because they played it like it was totally real on the radio show as opposed to being a story. I am not going to stop this video to do that research. So in the comments, am I wrong? Let's hear it. Like and subscribe. Okay. A.R. Gurney Jr. wrote a Reader's Theater play called Love Letters. I have not watched the whole thing, but I have a link included there for a clip of it that's about a minute long. It's available in its entirety in YouTube from different community theater productions of it. I got to tell you, it looks kind of boring. It's just two people reading next to each other. And I watched some YouTube links before that were not that interesting. But the clip that I include has two people reading it really, really well. And it's almost like voice acting. Like it's really interesting to hear people perform something so genuinely just in their voices. And it's almost like it's almost like a radio play. It's almost like they're not even there in front of you. It aids your imagination. The last thing we're going to talk about today is the Poetry Slam. So Poetry Slams are another American invention, just like the musical. And they were born in Chicago in 1987, 2 years before I was born in San Diego. It's a form of competitive performance poetry. Those three words are bizarre to me. Like just the concept of competitive poetry is, I mean, it's not, I guess it's fine. Like it's obvious, like people can compete in anything, but it's weird to me to think about. It has a few basic rules. Each poem must be an original work by the poet. Each poet gets 3 minutes of performance time. If the poet goes over that time, points are deducted. You may not use costumes, props, or musical instruments. Of the scores from 5 judges, the highest and lowest are taken away, and the 3 middle scores are added together to give the poet a total score from 0 to 30. And judges are selected from among the audience members. So each judge will judge it on a scale of 1 to 10 based on, whatever criteria they think. The actual rules given by the official Poetry Slam Incorporated website are: we use the word poem to include text and performance. Some say you should assign a certain number of points for a poem's literary merit and a certain number for the poet's performance. Others feel that you are experiencing the poem only through the performance, and it may be impossible to separate the two. You will give each poem only 1 score. Trust your gut and give the better poem the better score. Be fair. We all have our personal prejudices, but try to suspend yours for the duration of the slam. On the other hand, it's okay to have a prejudice that favors the true and the beautiful over the mundane and superficial, the fascinating over the boring and pedestrian. The rules are very, very loose. Audience members are brought up to be the judges, and they judge it on a scale of 1 to 10 on whatever criteria they think makes the most sense. Which poem is better, and interpret freely, right? And so it's a really interesting way to look at poetry and to think about who gets to decide what poetry sounds like, who gets to decide what poetry is good or not. We have this English canon decided good poetry, and your English classes, English teachers, those losers, teach you the good poetry, and this has been decided on by scholars and stuff. But in a poetry slam, it's just the audience, right? Every single person has the opportunity to judge a poem and be the authority on that poem. And indeed, putting back my English teacher hat on for a minute, that's everybody, right? There's a level of being able to appreciate what a poem does, even if you don't like it. Um, but there's also, every poem and experience of a poem is personal. And so I really hope that you take some of this idea into your English classes with you when you read poetry, and just kind of, interact with it. How does it feel? Does it feel good, true? Does it feel fake? Why? Don't say it's a bad poem necessarily because you don't like it, but try to interact with it on a personal level, because that's what slam poetry really encourages you to do. And all poetry is meant to be experienced that way. So I really encourage you to try to look at poetry through that lens. A lot of students often tell me they hate poetry, but I think it's because they're not looking at it personally. And I hope you don't hate poetry, because your assignment over the next 3 days is to write your own competitive poem piece. So you are going to be writing an original poem, and you are going to compete in a very modified poetry slam, because we can't perform in front of each other in person, if you might not have noticed that. I have some advice on how to prepare. Read that poem aloud a few times. Practice what it feels like. Pick the words you want to emphasize. Maybe stand up, walk around and say it. Experiment. Say it different ways. Do your best. And soon you'll be writing your own poem. So over the next 3 days, you're going to be writing and performing your own poem on anything that you want. This other assignment explains all of the rules and guidelines for that. And if you have any questions, please feel free, obviously, to ask. I'm available for you. And film yourself and turn it in on Friday. Good luck. Writing poetry is hard, but I believe that you can do it. You are a really creative bunch, and I've really enjoyed seeing your ideas. So I can't wait to watch you perform poetry. Honestly, also, if you don't think that 3 days is enough we're supposed to have you work about 30 minutes a piece. So 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. If an hour and a half isn't enough for you to write and perform a poem well, let me know. I don't want you to be working for hours on this. I don't know how long this should take in a coronavirus situation. I think that 3 days would probably be a little bit longer than I'd normally give you, because we'd work on it all day in class, plus we'd have work at home. But I don't want to overwhelm you. So please let me know if Friday is an unrealistic due date, and I'm happy to move that forward to Monday or Tuesday if need be. Just be honest, we're all trying our best. Okay, so that is the end of Tuesday. The next assignment is up there for you to see, and I hope you guys have a great day. See ya.